Hello. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Michael Rosenfeld, and I am the managing partner of WebConnection. We are an outsourced chief digital officer firm servicing small to mid-sized businesses. Today, what I want to talk about is the Maryland digital ad tax that passed last week. And I wanted to go over my opinion and some of the shortcomings, and those of you who live outside of Maryland, what you should be aware of, because I suspect this type of legislation will be coming to your state real soon. First, a couple disclaimers. This is only my opinion. This is not meant to be political, but more practical. And I absolutely welcome good natured debate on the points that I'm about to present to you. So, with that said, I'm going to share my screen and go over just a couple of points here. So the original details of this for the state of Maryland was the goal was to raise 250 million in tax revenue per year, especially in light of the shortfall created by the coronavirus. The money is to be earmarked for schools. This was an override of the governor's veto, and Maryland is the first state in the country to pass such legislation. Now, like I said, I don't want this to be political. However, I think it is reasonable to what the goals are to create more revenue for schools, but at what cost? So I think the easiest way to highlight this is to talk about it in terms that most people may understand. Let's talk about two local pizza joints. One's is Pat's Pizza in Ocean City, Maryland, annual revenue of $500,000, and John's Pizza, Bethany Beach, Delaware, annual revenue of $500,000. I'm not sure if I said 500,000 for Pat's, but these are small businesses, and I chose these two because they are located really close to one another, even though they're in different states. Now, well, the first thing that neither one of these pizza shops can afford to advertise on TV. But if they could afford to advertise on TV, they wouldn't be charged sales tax. They can't afford to advertise on the radio. But if they could afford to advertise on the radio, they wouldn't be charged sales tax or an ad tax. They can't afford, neither one of them can afford to advertise on billboards. But if they could advertise on billboards, they wouldn't have to pay a tax on that. And lastly, if they could afford, which they can't, to advertise in magazines, they wouldn't have to pay a sales tax. However, alas, advertising they can afford is digital ads. Digital ads are known to be the most cost effective targeted advertising, which allows small businesses to play and advertise where they normally couldn't. But based upon what was just passed, this is the only medium that I know, and I called people I know who run magazines and sell radio ads to confirm that this would be the only medium that has to pay a tax. And in my opinion, that alone is not reasonable or fair. I'm not proposing that all those other mediums have to pay sales tax as well. I'm just pointing out that this is the only one that requires that. So I think it's important for people to understand how digital ads work. Every internet connection is associated with an IP address. On your screen, you see a series of them. Uh, IP address can be factored back to individual cities or towns. So you can identify a IP address and track it back to a specific town, so that when people advertise digitally, they can actually say, "Hey, I only want my ads to appear in this town, in this city, in this state, in these states, or in these countries." So it's that targeted so that digital companies like Google, for example, know that you're advertising in a specific state because an IP address sees your ads. And that's what Maryland is proposing to tax. Now, here's the crux of the matter. If you don't agree with this next slide, then you can stop listening because The rest of what I'm going to say won't move you one way or the other. But what do you think's really going to happen if Google, here's who's taxed. It the people who are taxed or have to pay the tax is these platforms, Google, Bing, Facebook, Twitter, etc. But do you really think that they're not going to in turn pass that tax, and at that level it's 10%, pass that tax down to Pat's Pizza? And do you think Pat's Pizza is unlikely to potentially pass that tax on to you, the consumer? Or do you think these big, ginormous tech companies are going to absorb that tax and not pass it along? I think conventional wisdom and history shows that traditionally tax is passed on to the consumer. So at the end of the day, while the state of Maryland is saying that they want to tax these large tech companies who it could very well be argued aren't paying their fair share of taxes, at the end of the day, that's really not who is going to be paying. It's going to be passed through. So, with that said, let's go back to the tale of these two pizza joints: Sam's Pizza in Ocean City, Matthew's Pizza in Bethany. And this shows, and you can see these animated stars, how close these two are to one another. And because they're so close, they could actually, so the pizza shop in Maryland will potentially advertise in Maryland, but they can also advertise in Delaware because it's literally just over the state line, 5 minutes away. And vice versa, the pizza shop in Delaware can advertise in Delaware, but they also can advertise in Maryland to try to get some of this business. So we've created just a generic ad here. Bottom line is, in the scenario I just described, the daily digital ad spend, if there were 100 clicks in Delaware, would cost $100, but in Maryland it would cost $110, including that 10% tax. Now, the example I just described, it's all good because both of those pizza companies are located close to each other. So if they both decide to advertise in Maryland and Delaware, they're both paying the tax. So there's an even playing field there. But let's talk about a tale of two new pizza joints: Pam's Pizza, which is located in Baltimore, and Emma's Pizza, which is located in Dover, Delaware. Both of them are exactly the same size as the previous example I gave, except you can see in the animated stars that Baltimore is located here, Dover is located there. There's no reason for someone in Baltimore to advertise in Delaware because of the geography, and there's no reason for people in a pizza shop in Dover to advertise in Maryland because no one's getting a pizza 30 miles away. But in this example, the same exists. These two new pizza shops that I talked about still can't afford all of these different types of advertising, all of which, once again, would be tax free. So the only options they have that they can afford are digital ads. And and here's where it becomes clear. The pizza shop in Delaware that doesn't have to advertise in Baltimore per day would spend $100, but the Maryland pizza shop would have to spend 110, including that tax. Extrapolate that over a week: $700 to the Delaware pizza shop, 770 to the Maryland one, or the one located in Baltimore. One over a month, $3,000, and it's $3,300 for the pizza shop in Baltimore. You can see what's happening here, and when you project it over a year, you have 36,500 advertising budget for Delaware, and in the Baltimore shop it would be 40,150. That's real money. That's real money to small businesses. So, in summary, one, why should digital ads be the only ads taxed? Especially because those are the ads that most small businesses can actually afford. And people who advertise within the state of Maryland, who only do business in the state of Maryland, are at a competitive budgetary disadvantage over those throughout the country who don't have to deal with that. They're at a 10% disadvantage because that 10% is coming out of their budget and going to tax, when they could use that money either to spend on more advertising or to put back in their operating expenditures. So I hope this is enlightening. I once again welcome any feedback to this. Anything that you think is erroneous, doesn't make sense, but this is my understanding after following this for some time. And the last thing is, this is just Maryland, but I guarantee you, it's probably coming to a state near you.